Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Saddle up, everyone, and welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us. We are still trapped. I mean being trapped for the benefit of our YouTube viewers. Trapped in the pages of World's Finest Comics this week as we return to issue 246, published the 19th of May 1977. You remember the cover. What was in the cover again, Peter? That's the Superman twin chained up underground type.
Yes, with the kryptonite chains, the hunchback twin.
Yes. You remember that one, listeners, because we did the Wonder Woman story from it recently. But this week we are beginning what we didn't realise in the first place. An epic three-part Vigilante story that runs between 246, 247 and 248 of World's Finest.
Yeehaw!
In our very minimal preparation, Pete and I just assumed that these were all separate individual stories and we were going to sort of tag team between them and the Wonder Woman stories. And then we realised, oh, wait a minute, this ties together and this is a two-parter. Hang on. So, huge amounts of fun if you like Wonder Woman and the Vigilante and listening to us this summer.
It's the summer of Wonder Woman and the Vigilante. Summer, summer, summer of Wonder Woman and Vigilante.
It's the summer of World's Finest at 49.
Excellent, excellent.
Yes, go and listen to the Brandon Peters show.
And you'll get that reference.
Yes, so Vigilante story from issue 246. We flick past Black Canary and Green Arrow and all of that, and we arrive then at the first panel and the first caption of this Vigilante story, and it reads,
"He has travelled many miles in these past weeks, but with one destination in mind, Gotham City."
Take a drink immediate, listeners, because we can see some dustbins on the road. Vigilante on his motorbike, scooting along, but he's being watched from inside a rather run-down looking building. Being watched by a few men in kind of scrappy clothes, but they're all wearing top hats. They kind of look as if they're all auditioning for a Tom Petty tribute band. We can see that they're armed. They all have amazing facial hair and glasses and stuff. And we can see them looking at Greg, scooting along. Greg is thinking,
"The street, deserted."
And the caption, which Pete read a minute ago, telling us that he was on his way to Gotham City, is now followed up by another caption, which reads,
"And now he has arrived."
And we see Greg pulling up. Oh, is that a couch lying next to an abandoned car? What a very run-down area.
Well, we are in Gotham.
It could almost be Glasgow.
Yes.
There's another dustbin, take another drink. We can see signs saying, driveway, no parking.
He has come to help an old and dear friend, and to battle an old and lethal enemy. In the course of this saga, he will know heartache, frustration, and rage. He will come to rekindle old memories and wage the battle of his life. He is the Vigilante in Son of a Gun.
And we get the credits for the issue.
Story Bill Kunkel, art Gray Morrow.
I must say, I like the way that the Son of a Gun has been lettered. It kind of looks like the logo for Land of the Giants.
It
does. Very exciting.
Very much so, yes.
Greg is looking up at this ramshackle building and he's thinking to himself,
"Sure does smell like an ambush. But this is where Stuff asked me to meet him."
Take another couple of drinks, listeners, because there are a couple more distinct dustbins that we see here as Vigilante revs his engine and sends his motorbike roaring up the flight of stairs towards the door of this building. And as he moves, he thinks,
"So, ambush or not, I'm going in."
To the surprise of the waiting, top-hatted wearing bad guys, Vigilante crashes through the door, knocking out one goon with a punch and sending another flying by skidding the motorbike right into him. Vig fires off a few shots as more hat-wearing baddies approach from outside. Vigilante flicks a switch on his bike and rides it back towards the open door and out of the doorway, grabbing the doorframe and swinging off the bike as it then flies through the air before exploding and sending Vigilante's attackers in all directions like a set of Skittles. Vigilante then moves into the building, his pistol drawn. He opens a door, calling,
"Hey, Stuff! You round, pard? Hey, where are you?"
Vigilante opens a door wide, and moving in, he is greeted with a terrible sight. He cries,
"Stuff!"
because we see a chair has been tipped over onto a bare floor, and hanging by the neck, with his hands tied behind his back, is the body of a man. And we see Vigilante looking very, very sad indeed under his mask, very sober, close up as the captioning returns.
Shock. Silence. For the Vigilante, everything stops. Time, like hot taffy, is pulled, and the long ago and far away melts into the here and the now.
And the next few pages, the panels are all rounded because we're in flashback territory. And this first panel has a very warm brown tint to it as we see we're back in the Old West. We can see a stagecoach being held up by a number of shady-looking men on horseback. And the leader of this motley crew of villains is looking at the stagecoach and he says, "All right, everybody out, and you, Shotgun, throw down the strong box," obviously talking to the chap up next to the driver. And the coach driver, looking very scared, mutters to his pal,
"It's Judas Priest. Sheriff Saunders was right."
And we cut inside the stagecoach to see Sheriff Saunders and his assistant Luke. Luke has pulled his pistol. Looks a bit like Lee Van Cleef, actually, to my eyes.
It looks exactly like Lee Van Cleef.
Yeah, he's got a dark moustache. Sheriff Saunders is an older man, much older man. White hair, looks very jolly, a few lines on his face. But Luke has his pistol pulled and he says, "Well, Sheriff, looks like he was right about the Priest gang. They're here."
"Okay, Luke. Now, you just follow my lead."
And back outside the stagecoach, we see Judas Priest with his black hat and feather in the hat band, pistol pulled, moving a little closer to the coach, and he says, "You deaf in there?"
"No, Judas, that ain't it."
"What the?" exclaims Judas as he sees that Sheriff Saunders has put a double-barreled shotgun on him. And he says,
"You're under arrest, Judas."
"Well, Saunders, you finally got the drop on me. Okay, boys, drop your guns." And we see them all, well, they seem to all drop their pistols. Sheriff Saunders gets out of the stagecoach, still bearing his shotgun, and he points it up at Priest, and he calls back over his shoulder.
"Okay, Luke, you cover the..."
And then he screams, "Urgh!" because one of Priest's men has shot him in the back with a blam. Priest turns back to the stagecoach, pulling a rifle as Luke reaches out with his pistol. Seeing what's happened, Luke says, "Sheriff, son, oh!" And he goes down as well because with a crack, Priest shoots him right in the chest. Then we see Luke's body lying on the ground and Priest's gang riding off.
Time, like hot taffy, is pulled until it snaps, and suddenly Greg Saunders finds himself back at his father's grave.
Yes, very much like the image on the reprint of Vigilante's Origin from that issue of Secret Origins a couple of years ago. There's a great image of Vigilante, as we'll come to know him, standing looking down at his father's grave. And we can see that it reads Sheriff Saunders, murdered by outlaws. And there's another close-up shot of Greg, presumably in the present day, reflecting.
And later, he remembers tracking down the Priest gang, one by one.
And there's a little montage shot of him doing just that.
And then he heard the name.
And we see a young Greg in civvies in the background, wearing a green jacket, looking very smart, green hat, on a very early rudimentary motorcycle. With his backpack tied up, there's a couple of older men standing on the pavement in front of him. One chap saying to his friend, "Yep, they say some vigilante tracked down the Priest gang." And overhearing this, Greg thinks,
"A vigilante?"
And then we see him sort of stepping along, looking very cosmopolitan outside a cafe as he thinks,
"Guess that's what it was, all right."
Next panel, Greg is inside, presumably some kind of bank or post office or something, because we can see a sign in the background that says stamps and money orders. And Greg is looking at the wanted posters on the wall in front of him. Wanted, fugitive, that sort of thing. And as he leafs through them, Greg is thinking,
Pa always stood for the letter of the law, so maybe it's best this way. Maybe it's best that Judas Priest was gunned by...
And we see a gentleman in a pinstripe suit yelling,
"The Vigilante!"
Because we've slipped forward in time to show Greg in costume as Vigilante with his white hat and his red mask and his blue shirt, punching out a sharp-suited goon as his pinstriped colleague looks on.
And so Greg Saunders became two men, a guitar-picking troubadour and a fearless masked manhunter. The country had grown, changed since his father's day, but Greg soon learned that the code of honour he'd been taught to live by remained unchanged.
Yes, and we see that we're not actually back in the Old West. Obviously, when Greg was taken out, the Priest gang, he must have been a little bit younger, but he's a little bit older now. We can see that buildings look a little bit more modern. It's obviously some sort of Chinatown section of some large city. We can see laundry vans and people walking around. And then the final panel of page 7, the caption reads,
Time. He finds himself drawn irresistibly back to the first great battle in his war against crime. Back to Chinatown.
And we see Vigilante riding through the busy neon-lit city. There's a cinema house. We can make out the names Tim Holt, Richard something, Bullet something, plus the something on the cinema hoardings. And at the top of page 8 now, we are witness to the murder of a Chinese shopkeeper and his wife for basically refusing to let their store become an opium den. And after a slow dissolve, we see Vigilante discuss the shooting with a police detective, a white-haired chap in an orange suit and a loud tie who says, "No doubt about it, Vigilante. It's another gang rub-out."
These poor folks probably wouldn't let the killers use their store. Well, I got a tip in this here gang to check out.
And a voice can be heard off panel saying, "Then you better take me with you."
Huh? Who?
And we cut to see a young Chinese boy in a red shirt with black stripe wearing a white hat who says to Vigilante, "They call me Stuff. Those are my parents in there."
Your parents?
And as Greg Saunders looked into the boy's eyes, he saw a reflection of himself. And so the two, now partners, set off in search of the gang who had murdered Stuff's parents. The trail led eventually to an old abandoned warehouse.
As a couple of shots of Vigilante and Stuff punching out and jumping on the back of and knocking out some goons. There's a great shot of Vigilante punching out a guy in a brown suit, head over heels practically, as Stuff runs in, pointing off camera and says, "Hey Vig, somebody just took a powder."
That must be the ringleader.
"There he goes," says Stuff, and we can see a very diminutive-looking man in a very smart suit, the top hat and spats, running past no less than 4 dustbins, so take 4 drinks, as Vigilante whips out his lasso, starts whirling it and says,
Don't worry, nonpart, he ain't going far.
It was only then that they discovered the name of their antagonist.
Yep, we see that Vig has lassoed this little miscreant, a tiny, tiny little man, is holding him up off the ground and saying,
The dummy. I've heard a lot about this little varmint.
And now we see Vigilante and Stuff walking away from the 4th precinct, where they have tied the dummy to a lamppost outside the police station, and the dummy is calling after them.
You'll pay for this indignity, cowboy. I swear you'll rue the day that you crossed the dummy.
And then the flashbacks end, and return, well, to what the caption says.
Time. The present.
We see that Vigilante has righted the chair that had been knocked over. He's standing on it, knife in hand. He's cutting the rope that had secured Stuff to the ceiling, and we can see that a note has been attached to Stuff's body, and it reads,
Vigilante took the liberty of eliminating your oriental sycophant. Was great fun. Your move. Signed, the dummy.
And as Vig cuts the rope and carefully lowers Stuff's body into his arms, he says,
All right, dummy. You started this, but like you say, it's my move now. And I swear, I won't rest until your black heart has stopped beating forever.
And the caption reads,
To be continued. Vengeance of the Vigilante.
Listeners, we encourage you now to reach for your copy of World's Finest number 247, published on the 19th of July 1977. You'll remember the cover.
Yes, it's the one with Superman and lots of soldiers, and they're all giving each other lovely Nazi salutes. That's what we like to see in covers. Superman giving a Nazi salute.
Interesting.
Fortunately, that's not how the story plays out.
And if you were with us recently, listeners, you will know that we've already read from this issue. We read the Wonder Woman and Baron Blitzkrieg and Mademoiselle Marie story. We read part 2 of that. I think it was just last week, in fact, as the crow flies.
It was.
And now we move back to a few pages in the issue to the Vigilante story, which begins with a caption.
Some play games for sky-high stakes. Some play penny ante. But those who gamble with the law must pay the Vigilante.
And we begin with a shot of a very attractive young blonde lady and a muscular, dark-haired young man. The young lady has astonishingly patterned trousers with lovely loops and circles. Hopefully there'll be room for a shot of them on the socials. And they are stood beside a diminutive fellow who sat in a chair watching a screen which is showing the Vigilante engaged in a brawl with no less than 3 policemen. He's got one of them by the neck, he's punched out another one, and one other one is grabbing him round the waist as the captioning returns.
Deep within the security-laden walls of an eminently respectable Gotham City business firm sits the Dummy. And within these sacrosanct walls, the homicidal homunculus has established the brain center for a crime cartel that extends far beyond the city's borders.
And then we get the credits for this adventure.
Story, Bill Kunkel. Art, Gray Morrow.
And we then get a shot of the Dummy laughing crazily to himself as the captioning returns.
Let's join our murderous midget as he secretly observes a moment of irrepressible mirth.
And then, over a shot of Poor Stuff's body hanging by rope, a caption reads,
Forced to fight an army of the Dummy's men in a deserted tenement, the Vigilante discovered Stuff, his old Chinatown sidekick, murdered. Now the police arrive and find the area littered with corpses, and a cowboy standing in the middle with a pair of smoking six-guns. This is but the first obstacle in the
Death Maze. The dummy turns to the dark-haired young man stood beside him and says,
I'm really enjoying myself, but all play and no work will never do. So, to the main office, Slug.
Yes, sir. And Slug, he looks a bit like Kurt Russell actually in this panel, or is it Elvis, or both, reaches down and lifts the dummy out of his chair, starts to carry him towards the office. Dummy says,
And don't jostle me.
Not to worry, boss.
It's nice to be back in the outside again, Slug.
Yeah, and what an escape. Only you could have done it, boss. And the dummy then goes on to explain how he got out of prison by faking a reversion to childhood, which led to him being transferred to Arkham Asylum, which might be the first mention of Arkham Asylum on the podcast.
Amazing. Yes, I think so.
Yeah, update your charts and spreadsheets, listeners. And once in Arkham, he got Molly, who we presume is the blonde girl with the loon pants that's hanging about, to smuggle in some plastic explosives disguised as silly putty, which then took out the entire southwest wall of Arkham as he escaped. The dummy is now ensconced in Gotham City, and he ponders what could be happening between the local police and his old enemy, the Vigilante. We cut to Vigilante struggling against a group of officers, and he's at risk of being shot when a familiar face arrives and says, No, it's all right, men. I'll take charge. And the young police officer confirms,
Yes, sir, Commissioner Gordon.
And Vigilante, picking up his hat, which has presumably been knocked off in his scuffles, says,
Oh, well, how have you been, Commissioner?
Just great, that is, until you hit town. Now I've got a street full of corpses wearing top hats, and I find you fighting the entire tactical police force. I wouldn't mind so much, old friend, but with Batman's headquarters here, I'd get enough static about, vigilantes. Now, I know the dummy broke jail, but that's a police matter.
Sorry, Commissioner. Now it's my business, too.
Vig gestures down towards Poor Stuff's body, which is lying on the ground. Commissioner Gordon, seeing the body, can only say quietly, Oh, my God. All right, Vigilante. I can give you limited police authority in this matter, and I'll try to get you some sort of permit to carry those cannons. Moving outside the tenement now, we can see some of the top-hatted goons lying on the ground. We can see one being taken away in an ambulance by Roy Thomas, by the looks of it. As Commissioner Gordon introduces Vigilante to another police officer, a slightly rotund, happy-looking man in a sort of tie Peter would get away with.
Yay.
Wearing a brown suit and a hat, Commissioner Gordon taps this chap on the shoulder and says, This is Detective Lieutenant Filker. You'll have to let him in on every move you make. Understand? Vigilante shakes hands with the lieutenant and says,
Uh-huh.
As Filker goes on to say in the next panel, This is a real honour. I read all about you when I was a rookie and...
I hate to be rude, but, well, I got some arrangements to make. Gotta find a place to bed down.
Sure. Catch you later. And Vigilante takes his leave, and as Commissioner Gordon and Lieutenant Filker watch him go, Filker says, You know, I could actually imagine him sleeping by a campfire with one of them magnums under his pillow. We then see Vigilante in his penthouse suite, preparing his weapons, including a knife in his boot and a spring-loaded pistol in his wrist. He then places a call to a warehouse, which he then heads to collect a new, bright red Vigilante motorcycle. And he then sets off to find an obliging stool pigeon.
As good as his word, within a half an hour, the Vigilante has persuaded a member of the underworld to aid him in his search for vengeance.
Yes, we see Vigilante talking to what looks like, is that Abel from the House of Secrets?
Down in his luck, perhaps, yes.
It doesn't look like it. His House of Secrets been cancelled yet.
And it's hit him hard.
Yes. Very scruffy-looking fellow in an ill-fitting shirt, showing off his belly button. Unkempt long hair, a beard, wearing a scrappy green jacket. Vigilante has got him by the scruff of his jacket and he's saying,
Listen, Pipe, I know you and the dummy go way back, and I don't feel like playing with you.
Okay. Me and the dummy are yesterday's newspapers, but I'll tell you what I do know about a guy called Kingston.
Later,
we see Vig climbing up the side of a skyscraper using his rope, and he's thinking to himself,
Seems crooks always have to hide in the top floor. Pipe told me this Kingston character is the dummy's lieutenant here in Gotham. which makes me more than a mite interested in what he has to say.
And we then see Vig climbing an open window. He must have a really good head for heights. Climbing an open window, and he looks around and he thinks,
You know, I hate to sound like the suspicious type, but if I didn't know better, I'd swear this was a dummy hallway.
And he steps into the corridor, and we hear a couple of very odd
Thunk, thunk.
sound effects as Vig thinks.
Suspicion's confirmed. Damn that little hyena.
And then there's a noise, and suddenly, out of nowhere, a spiked wall has appeared and starts to, well, very helpfully, Vigilante says,
Walls are closing in, and I'm going to wind up hamburger. The dummy knew where I was going to be before I did.
And then we see Vig leaping into the air and balancing himself on a couple of the spikes on the wall, and he says,
Fortunately, I'm on my way up. I noticed a whole floor on top of this one. Now if I can work my way up and blow a big enough hole in the ceiling...
yes, and we see him firing his pistol into the ceiling with a
Blow!
creating a hole which he manages to pull himself up through in the nick of time before being spiked. Gosh! Vig says,
I'm home free. Or am I?
and then we hear a sound effect, and then this is bizarre, listeners. I was up for about 3 hours last night trying to work out how to describe this. It looks kind of like, almost like garden rakes with spikes at the end, but flat. I don't know, but they're all obviously in a motor, and they're all rushing towards him. They've got spikes and then something else to try and pin him, basically. Vig cries,
Good night. What have I walked into?
Instantly, Fidge makes a toss for the...
yes, and as he lassoes something overhead, he whips himself up, saying,
Sprinkler system. The only thing to hook my rope onto to avoid those giant saw blades.
oh, they're giant saw blades, are they? Okay, well, Mr. Morrow didn't make that too clear. Gosh, well, presumably he gets away from the saw blades, because there's a little bit of a narrative leap, because we see him in the next panel, bursting through a door with a...
Slam!
and he's saying to himself,
Any more surprises like that, and I'm apt to get steamed.
there's a set of double doors opposite, but he bursts through with his lasso in hand. We see a man slumped in a chair in front of him as Vigilante says,
All right, Kingston, I'm in no mood for games.
and he lassoes the man, turns the chair round and exclaims,
Oh, my lord.
because it's obvious that Kingston is dead, and it looks like those are bloodstains all over his jacket and what appear to be little shining white metal stars sticking out all over his torso. Oh my goodness. And just as Vig starts to take this all in, a voice from behind him cries, All right, drop that gun. And we see that it's Lieutenant Filker who's spoken, and he continues, Vigilante, you're under arrest for the murder of Joylyn Kingston. And a caption reads,
Accused of murdering the only lead to Stuff's killer. Next, the Vigilante must face all the Dummy's men.
Yes, and we now move to issue 248, World's Finest, published on the 20th of September 1977. We are progressing through 1977 at a rate of knots. Certainly, as far as it goes with reference to World's Finest, we'll be whiplashing back to January or February in the next few weeks, probably, who can say.
Yes.
We will save the description of the cover of issue 248 for when we do the Wonder Woman story. So hold on to your hats for that, listeners. Bear in mind, wait and see, etc. So, some captioning begins.
Only 6 hours have elapsed since the Vigilante arrived in Gotham. In that time, he has discovered the body of his sidekick Stuff, murdered by his old adversary, the Dummy.
And we see that things have moved on since last issue's cliffhanger, because Lieutenant Filker and Vigilante have calmed down, and the Lieutenant is saying, You had me worried there, Vig, when I saw that corridor out there with all those death traps, then I find you in here and Kingston dead. Well,
Can't say as I blame you either, Lieutenant, but the spurs that finished off this polecat didn't come off my boots.
and it appears to be the silhouetted form of Kingston. It's taking up the rest of the panel. We can see a telephone receiver, and it looks like there's a pistol being held in his fingertips. I can't remember if I saw that in the last issue. I'm going to look back and see very quickly. You can see his hands, yeah, but there's no sign of a pistol. No sign of a phone receiver either. So is that some discontinuity? Who can say? But anyway, I'm glad that things have calmed down between Vig and the Lieutenant, because the caption kicks in.
He has battled both the police and the minions of his implacable foe before finally setting off in search of a Mr. Kingston, the Dummy's Gotham City lieutenant, only to find him already dead by another's hand.
And then we get the credits for this adventure.
Bill Kunkel, writer, Gray Morrow and Vicente Alcazar, artists, Ben Oda, letterer, Gray Morrow, colorist, Jack C. Harris, editor.
And the captioning returns.
Now he stands in Kingston's office with Detective Philcar, his police liaison, contemplating his next move in his battle with all the Dummy's men.
And then, right, listeners, I've got to say, Mr. Morrow is going out on a high this week. Some of the art is slightly obscure, so we now seem to cut to outside the building, where there's a shot of a man, a very shady shot of a man in a hat, as we hear the conversation taking place in the building above between Vigilante and the lieutenant, with Philcar saying, "Just what is this thing that killed him, Vig?"
Shuriken, a martial arts weapon you throw at your victim, and whoever threw these was good at it. Kingston here got his gun out, but he didn't even get off one round, so..."
And Vig breaks off because we hear a creak, and Philcar says, "Huh?" Because he's not sure what's going on, and then Vigilante says,
"You know, I got me a hunch we're going to meet our weapons expert right about now."
And then we dramatically shift in perspective and we see Vigilante's last word there was being observed on a television screen by the dummy. He turns to his obedient lackey and says,
"Slug, lift me up. I have to see. What happened to Kingston?"
On the screen we see a shot of Vigilante, then it looks as though it's Lieutenant Philcar's cigar falling out of his mouth, and then on the screen it looks as though Stuff has just walked in. Then Slug dropping the dummy in surprise. Dummy then seems to be sweating in the next panel as he points at the screen and says,
"No, he's dead. I saw him dead. Turn them off. Turn those monitors off."
So that's what it was. The creak of the floorboards was Stuff arriving into the room. We quickly jump back to Kingston's office as the caption reads.
Meanwhile...
And, yes indeed, a young Chinese boy wearing a red shirt with a white and black stripe, wearing a white hat, is standing in the doorway. Vig says,
"Stuff? That you, partner?"
And the boy replies, "Stuff, your partner was my father."
There are rare moments in life when silence can speak more eloquently than any words.
We see Vigilante kneeling down, putting a supportive hand onto Stuff's shoulder. Lieutenant Philcar standing in the background.
But when that silence is ended...
Vig says,
"Let's get moving, Lieutenant. It's time."
Meanwhile, at the sprawling estate on the outskirts of Gotham...
Yes, big sprawling estate, beautifully rendered nighttime colouring by Gray Morrow. We can see the large house in the background, all the lights are on, and in the foreground there's a security camera, there's an Alsatian dog, and there's a guy in a top hat and a purple jumper carrying a machine gun. Gosh! Over the page, we're inside the building, and we're with the dummy and Slug, and an attractive lady scientist in a long white lab coat. The dummy is in the process of saying,
"My plans! My earth-shaking plans! All is in readiness when a ghost appears."
Sir," says the attractive lady scientist, who then goes on to say, "you must realise that this is some sort of ploy. Ghosts don't exist, and the Vigilante..."
"The Vigilante, Miss Katz, is undoubtedly on his way here right now, and I must prepare. But then, I am prepared. What chance does the Vigilante stand against my killer cycles and their laser cannons?"
Yes, and there's a great shot of all his goons outside, dressed like they're at some kind of freak out with some weird-looking equipment all ranged in front of them.
It's like a steampunk convention.
Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? Like a 70s aesthetic steampunk. And you can see that they've all got motorbikes with these little laser cannons mounted in the front of them. This is fascinating. Our perspective then shifts to inside Lieutenant Philcar's car. He's driving along. We can see Vigilante and Stuff on Vigilante's bike. In the foreground, Vigilante is saying,
"So, it was you who sent me that letter?"
"Yes, my father and I spent many days tracking down Kingston and the dummy. And believe it or not, I gained access to Kingston's office by posing as a messenger boy. When I confronted Kingston, he drew his gun. I killed him only in self-defense."
"Hell, I knew all that stuff, Junior. But after uncovering the whole setup, I sure wish your pappy could have been in on the finish with us."
We then hear from Lieutenant Philcar in his car as he's saying, "Geez, I got so carried away with this I forgot to radio for help. Something tells me Commissioner Gordon isn't going to be too thrilled about all of this." We then cut back to Vigilante at extreme close-up as he says,
"Get ready, amigos. We're there."
And they've arrived indeed at the estate where the dummy is hidden. We see Vigilante and Stuff vaulting over the wall on their motorcycle as Lieutenant Philcar races his car towards the guarded gate, saying, "Officer needs assistance. Direct all available units to Forest Gardens, and hurry." And then with a crash, he batters through the gate, sending two of the dummy's goons flying tremendos. The bike and the car then speed up the driveway, with Vig saying,
"Well, we got through in one piece, but I gotta tell ya, that there bunch of owl hoots and choppers are still between us and the dummy."
And then we see that there bunch of owl hoots on the top panel on the next page, revving their engines and roaring towards us. They're backed by an enormous... And it looks like there's about 20 of them, bike headlights shining. Lieutenant Filcar pulls up his car as Vigilante and stuff pull up on the bike, with Vigilante saying,
The way I see it, our only chance is to dismount those Rennies. So you'd best ride with the lieutenant while I try and do that little thing.
And as Vigilante rows off on his bike, Stuff calls after him, But how can you dismount?
That's my lookout, pard. You just wait here and pray. And once I knock him down, well, come out fighting.
And we see Vig operating a little switch on his bike, similar to the one that he did at the start of Chapter 1, because we can see a little more clearly here that it's labelled Detonator or Detonate, and he then sends the bike roaring forward towards the arriving goons. He leaps off, and then there is a colossal and horrific... As we see bits of motorbike and laser cycle and owl hoots, as we're calling them now, goons just flying horrendous. Flames burning mightily as the lieutenant and stuff join Vigilante in punching out goons left, right and centre. Filcar is saying, It's a good thing these dudes are still groggy from the explosion. Then Stuff says, Imagine, I battle as my father did alongside the great Vigilante. As Stuff kicks one guy over, and then Vigilante punches someone out as he says,
Oh, 20-1 odds ain't so bad.
We then cut to inside the building, with a terrified dummy jumping up and down and crying,
Imbeciles, cowards, traitors, and after all my great work.
And then Slug mutters behind his hand to Dr. Katz, saying, You know, ever since he's seen that Chinese kid, the boss has been getting nuttier and nuttier.
I heard that. Nor have I forgotten you dropped me earlier.
And then at this point, the dummy extends his cane and fires something from it with a... And all we see in silhouette is Slug falling over, crying, No, boss! No! Ah! Back outside, Lieutenant Filcar's reinforcements have arrived, and amongst the flames we see some cops getting out of their vehicles and rounding up all the goons as Vigilante points everything out and says,
You boys can finish up out here, but I've got a private score to settle.
The dummy, however, has plans of his own.
Yes, and we see the diminutive Danger running down a small flight of stairs and thinking,
Fortunately, I had the foresight to arrange for a private escape.
But then he pulls up, because standing in front of him is Vigilante, who says,
End of the trail, you murderous little varmint!
Not quite, you rodeo refugee. You see, with a push of this button, I can blow you to atoms.
And he waves his cane in Vigilante's direction. Vigilante gets a moody close-up as he thinks,
Can't outdraw him. There's only one chance, and this rig had better work.
Faster than the eye can follow, a derringer slides from its place of concealment in Vigilante's sleeve and into his hand.
Yes, remember I'm setting that up earlier on, listeners, and it slides into his hand and he fires at the cane with a... BAM! You see it shattering in the dummy's hand. A slow dissolve.
The following day, after the dummy and his men are taken into custody, the Vigilante prepares to board a new cycle and bid farewell to Gotham.
Yes, his third motorbike in as many chapters. He must be getting paid an awful lot for these concerts. Maybe he's got quite good merch sales. I don't know. Anyway, Veg is standing with Stuff Jr. Hand on his shoulder, he says,
Son, you sure did your pappy proud. And me too. But where in blazes did you learn to fight like that?
From a friend of my father's, a great teacher called Richard Dragon. I too have a question, Vigilante. My father was but a boy when he met you, yet you seem not to have aged a day. How can this be?
That, son, is a long story. But since we're partners now...
And then we see them both on the bike, riding off into the sunset, through the desert by the looks of things. Vig concludes,
I guess I got plenty of time to tell you.
And the small caption reads,
The end.
Right. Okay. Well, first of all, that's really quite sad that Stuff was killed.
Yes, that's an absolute shock. That panel, when he opens up the door and just sees him just hanging there, it's so effective. Grey Morrow's incredible. And we'll say this for every single panel in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't imagine him doing that now, so, I don't think you would see the full, I'm miming for the benefit of YouTube viewers, I think you would see the full wide shot of the dead body hanging. It would be a lot more implied,
yeah.
I think. I was talking to Carl Folk the other night, and we were sort of saying how Ace probably wouldn't be allowed a baseball bat in Doctor Who anymore, because it's easily copyable, inimitable violence, So yeah, Stuff being killed off is interesting, because that's death of a golden age character, etc.
Yep.
And then introduction of his son is another legacy aspect, but it's that last page. last page there, which blows the whole thing wide open, because Pete and I, when we've been doing these stories from Adventure Comics with Vigilante, and then latterly these ones from World's Finest with Vigilante, we just assumed that this was the Earth 1 Vigilante, the guy who was reintroduced in Justice League issue 79 or thereabouts, whenever it was. And then, obviously we talked a few weeks ago when we did a Vigilante story about the slight overlap between the stories in Adventure Comics and the return of the Vigilante who was a member of the Seven Soldiers of Victory in JLA, and how that JLA issue and that World's Finest were published within days of each other. And we just sort of assumed that we'd been reading the Earth 1 Vigilante in these recent stories, but that bit at the end when stuff says, "My father was but a boy when he met you, and you seem not to have aged a day," to me that suggests he might have not aged a day because he was displaced in time for a few years by the events of Justice League 100 to 102. Pete and I's discussion before we started recording today was, does this mean that this story has featured, or maybe all of the ones we've done in World's Finest in the last few weeks have featured the Earth 2 Vigilante, or, now that there's mention here of Richard Dragon, the Kung Fu fighter, who had his own comic which ran for 18 issues and also got an appearance on Brave and the Bold, suggests either that Richard Dragon was on Earth 2, or that this has been the Earth 1 Vigilante, or what?
Well, we've also got an appearance here from Commissioner Gordon.
Yes, Commissioner Gordon, a very contemporary seeming Commissioner Gordon.
Yes. As we know, in the recent All-Star comics, Bruce Wayne's police commissioner.
Yes.
At the moment in Gotham City. So this does seem to imply it's Earth 1.
It does.
But that doesn't explain the time difference for Vigilante.
So there's two ways of looking at this, right?
Okay.
We have contemporary Commissioner Gordon, which, as you've just said, has to be Earth 1, because Bruce Wayne is the commissioner in Gotham on Earth 2.
Yep.
This is backed up by Richard Dragon, who's been mentioned appearing alongside Batman and Brave and the Bold, which we've read the contemporary Earth 1. So, either the time-displaced Vigilante from Earth 2 has moved over to Earth 1, which is probably not the case, let's be honest, or Vigilante is just incredibly well preserved.
Do you think one of his early cases, this Earth 1 Vigilante fought someone called Ian Carkle? As a throw forward there, folks, for when we do All-Star Squadron. Because in the flashback to Vigilante's origin here, it's definitely, it's the Wild West. It's the tail end of the Wild West.
It's the tail end of the Wild West, but then we see him as a young man cutting about in what looks like the 20s to my eye. But then he was active. Do we have to sort of assume that all the Golden Age Vigilante stories were set in the 1940s? I suppose they have to have been, because he was involved with the Lost Legionnaires and the Seven Soldiers.
Absolutely.
I thought we were fine until the Richard Dragon comment. I really did. I do not envy Peter having to edit this, listeners.
Well, we've been tearing our hair out. It's been fascinating. But yes, it's one of the things I love about doing this podcast.
Yes.
Is that we can do a dive into this sort of thing and try and work out ourselves. The laziest answer in the world would be to say this is Earth B, and we do not stick to an Earth B concept. Earth B is basically when you can't fit something into continuity. That's where they say it took place in that, because it doesn't really work. But this story's too good. It's ridiculously good, especially after the first two Vigilante stories we've had, which were, let's be honest, pretty much filler. Yeah. The artwork was nice.
Yes, that was about it, yeah.
But yeah, they're nothing spectacular, but this is sensational. This would have been an incredible one-shot.
Yeah, it would have been a really good first issue special or something, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, if they'd started off with this, I think Vigilante would have carried on.
Yeah, because obviously we've seen from some of the letters pages that we've covered that people didn't seem too fussed about Vigilante.
Yeah.
They wanted Wonder Woman returned to the present day, and they weren't fussed about Vigilante.
But this was fantastic.
Yeah, this is really going to niggle me. So it has to be Earth 1.
Mm-hmm.
If you're getting reference to Richard Dragon and it's contemporary Gotham with a contemporary Commissioner Gordon, it absolutely has to be. And the easiest way for that is it's the guy who was introduced in Justice League in issue 79 or thereabouts. The long-lived thing, I think that has obviously got to be, in the writing there, has got to be a reference to the fact that there was a Vigilante who was time displaced.
Yeah.
And that's what it's impossible to reconcile.
That could be like an editorial mix-up, yeah.
Where obviously I think shows that the people who were doing this, writing and drawing these stories at the time, weren't really paying too much attention to all of this sort of stuff.
No, true. Let's phone Jack C. Harris.
This has put me in a bad mood, listeners.
Well, ain't that a shame, partner?
Because there isn't an easy way to reconcile this, because there's two contrary elements in consecutive panels there.
Yeah.
Unless... No, that doesn't work either.
Unless there's a Richard Dragon in Earth 2.
But the
But
Commissioner
Gordon blows that out of the water, yeah.
It's like the fact that Colin Gordon turns up in 2 episodes of The Prisoner as not presumably the same number 2, but the order they're shown in is contradictory. Because in the first one he appears in A, B, and C, he says, "I am number 2." When he turns up in The General, he's the new number 2.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you watch those 2 episodes, and I'm watching The Prisoner at the moment,
No.
using a friend's sort of custom viewing order that tries to make sense of it all, there's no way that he could come back from the absolute state that he's in at the end of ABC to appear in The General. The General has to come before it, and there's a couple of little subtle continuity things with Glasses of Milk, but it's almost irreconcilable, but you have to kind of just go with it.
Yeah.
And this has really annoyed me now, because I didn't notice the Richard Dragon reference when I was doing the prep for this last night. And it's mind-boggling. It has to be the Earth One guy.
It has to be, and I think the only logical way we can look at this is if there was a case that Vig had fairly early on where he did encounter something. I joked at the Ian Carcall thing, but he might have had some sort of youth potion. He might have just gone to a really cool medicine show and picked up some fantastic bargains there.
Yeah.
But I think something's happened.
Was he affected in a similar way as his Earth 2 counterpart? Was he also... but he can't have been, because the Justice League met him in issue 7. This is the thing.
Yeah.
It's that JLA story and that World's Finest story that the early one was Soups, the creature stalking the Badlands. They're the ones that really throw the spanner in the works, because they have to be on Earth 1.
I would love to hear Ranger Gord's thoughts on this.
Oh, gosh.
Yes. Ranger Gord, please get in touch and let us know what you think.
Yeah, God, please do, matey.
Because this is absolutely fascinating.
A Gordian knot.
Or some kind of Ranger Gordian knot. Either it's some sort of longevity he now has, or some sort of time displacement he's had in a previous story that we haven't seen, in an untold story. So, yeah.
See, this is the thing. If this was post-crisis, it wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah.
But it would, because it's the JLA 17. It's the fact he brought him back in that and didn't make any explanation or allowance from being significantly old. They just picked him up like it was... See, this is why,
This is why crisis should happen.
Exactly. You're literally taking the words right out of my mouth. This is the sort of shit, pardon my French, that makes the crisis necessary, because if they hadn't put in the Richard Dragon reference, we would have gone, oh right, this one must be set on Earth 2. If they hadn't put in the time displaced, we would have gone, all right, further evidence that it's set on Earth 1. Anyway, are we going to talk about anything else to do with the story? Did Lieutenant Philcar ever turn up anywhere else? He fascinated me. He was cool.
I didn't recognise him, but it would have been great if it'd been, slightly later and it was Bullock that they put in, because obviously Bullock hasn't been introduced yet. He was very kind of Bullock-like in his demeanour. As I said, the artwork in this is sensational. I loved the old Universal serial kind of motif of the wall coming in with the spikes coming out of it, and he's climbing up it.
Yeah, that was so random. Who has that set up outside their office or in their apartment building? That was crazy.
You don't? No?
No.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Oh, well.
Do you?
There's a reason I don't have guests. No, it's a sound. And again, we've got a back climb. He literally lassos up this skyscraper. How long's that lasso? How did he get it up there?
Crisis on Infinite Lassos.
I know. And he's climbing up the side of the skyscraper. But yeah, it's great fun. And I'm fascinated by... when he gets his second cycle, when he rides off away from the warehouse, from the big crate that is labelled G. Sanders, care of Kunkel Storage, Gotham City.
Yeah.
He says, as he rides off, he builds them better every time. So who's doing the Vigilante's tech?
Yes. Who is supplying these motorbikes?
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Is it Bruce? Does Bruce Wayne, help him out? I don't know. Because bear in mind, he's crossing the country. It looks quite bat-cycly, I'll be honest.
Oh God, I don't know. This story is giving me a headache in all ways.
And all 3 of these Vigilante cycles look slightly different.
Yeah.
It's quite cool. Different colours, different designs on them. But they all come with that amazing self-destruct switch, which just looks like a little switch you could easily accidentally press.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to give someone a backie and they accidentally hit my self-destruct switch.
No, that'd be awful. God. Oh, I'm annoyed now reading this. It's weird because obviously our plan originally, listeners, we were just going to tag team between the Vigilante and Wonder Woman stories. And then last week, literally, we noticed, wait a minute, this Vigilante story runs through. So we figured out we'd do the Wonder Woman Baron Blitzkrieg story and then come and do this. But obviously, the Vigilante's enemy in this story was the dummy. Mm-hmm. Give us some stats on the dummy then, Pete, or this dummy.
Well, this dummy... if he is the Earth 1 dummy, that's his only appearance as far as comics go. But the original dummy first appeared in Leading Comics #1, Blueprint for Crime, which came out on the 17th of December 1941. And he came across the Vigilante quite a bit, actually, in over half a dozen more stories.
Okay.
So yeah, lots of interaction. So he was kind of like a big deal for the Vigilante. And he was, as is said, using the words in the story, he was just a midget disguised kind of like as a ventriloquist dummy.
Right.
That's his look. Not an actual ventriloquist dummy reanimated.
Mm.
But yes, that's kind of like his background. He was like a crime boss, crook killer.
Right.
And he's quite often got a stogie in his mouth, which he had in this, and Grey Morrow drew that brilliantly.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Art was definitely a highlight in this one. Really, I haven't emphasised that enough yet. Listeners, off the back of the dummy appearing in this episode, we are planning our first portmanteau episode of 2026, and that's going to follow next week. See if you can guess what that's going to be about.
Yes.
So, listeners, we're going to have a quick look at any contemporary correspondence now.
Yeah, we've done most of the letters before, so we'll just read out the excerpts talking about the Vigilante story. So the first comment is from Kevin J. Dooley from Glendale, California, and he says, Grey Morrow on the Vigilante is splendid, and Kunkel's stories are getting progressively better. This one was superb, and more, very moving. Then from Scott J. Loverin's letter, he says, the Vigilante feature is a good backup, greatly enhanced by Grey Morrow's art. You mentioned he is riding off into the sunset. Where? And who will be his replacement?
Unfortunately, there's no editorial response to that. The Vigilante's obviously getting dropped like a hot potato at this point.
Yeah. The next comment's from Scott Gibson, regular letter writer, and he says, the Vigilante strip was the issue's high point. Kunkel's script and Morrow's art achieved quality the other features could never hope to match. The Vengeance-type serials have never impressed me too much because they tend to write themselves. But I've been unable to remain aloof in Greg Saunders' search for the fiendish dummy since the evil gnome was responsible for the death of a character who had been around for 30 years. The cameo appearance by Commissioner Gordon was a nice touch. Kunkel captured the personality perfectly. Gordon is a good guy, even to superheroes, unlike the hackneyed out-to-get vigilante stereotype you see in most comics. And the comments from letter writer Jeff Sporn, who says, I'll be sorry to see the Vigilante series depart, but I realise you must move to bigger and better things, such as the Creeper. Even so, I'll miss Grey Morrow's art. Art that was the best in World's Finest issue 247.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shame that it's going, because basically until All-Star Squadron, I think this is it for the Vigilante on the show, pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah, such a shame. Ray Hamill says, can stuff really be dead? After all these years of reading the adventures of the Vigilante and his sidekick Stuff, it is truly strange to see Vigilante working on his own. If Stuff is really dead and will no longer be seen in the Vig section of World's Finest Comics, it will really be a shame. However, I'm sure Vig will get his revenge on the dummy. And the final letter column dealing with issue 248 has got two comments about Vigilante. The first one's from Steve Feldberg, who says, sorry to see Vigilante go. I felt throughout his tenure that more could be done with him. It's unfortunate that the final chapter promises so much. The secret of his youth, his relationship with Stuff Jr., his leaving Gotham City. So we're not the only ones talking about Vigilante's youth here.
Yeah, someone else probably is assuming that this has been the Earth One guy that we've been reading, and he was just well preserved. Anyway.
Yes. And the final comment in the Vigilante series is from Carmen Dottier, who says, what I did get off on was the Vigilante yarn. Simply, expressively drawn, concisely written by a writer who knows what to say and when to shut up. I realise the point of the magazine format is to provide greater range, something for everybody, but with two such dissimilar stories in the same issue, you previously referred to the Superman-Batman story, I think you're overextending yourselves. I vote for a more adult direction. Stories like All the Dummy's Men come all too rarely. There we are. A lot of praise there for the Vigilante.
Yeah, a little too late, to be honest, though, really.
Yeah.
After this little feverish burst here, this is almost it for the Vigilante before he pops up again in All-Star Squadron, but we have a particular flashback episodes in the works, so Vigilante will return before too long. And, as I said already, we're going to do a portmanteau next week of some other dummies. Isn't that right, Peter?
Absolutely, yes. Stay tuned for that. This dummy wasn't the only one published by DC. There are several characters who were dummies. Yes, including your two hosts.
Yes, lots and lots to choose from. So we've gone for a couple, we've gone for a few. So a couple of characters who we've met on the show previously, who we quite like. So just come back to us in 7 days with that. But in the meantime, I'm confuzzled by the inconclusive conclusion to this whole Greg Saunders saga.
Listeners, do you have contact details for a therapist who can talk to David about his confusion? If so, you can email us at theearth2podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on social media because we'll be putting up lots of lovely bonus material for this and indeed every episode. Some outstanding grey moral art in this. Look forward to that. On Facebook, Instagram and Blue Sky, we're at the Earth2 Podcast, and on Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2, and it is, of course, the number 2 for all of our socials.
Yes, listeners, do get in touch with your thoughts on what this could all mean for the Vigilante and what's going on, and your thoughts via Earth1, Earth2, Earth B, or what have you. I'd be really interested to hear what you had to say.
And if you've enjoyed these Vigilantics, then why don't you tune in to Prairie Justice, the official Vigilante podcast, hosted by Ranger Gord Tolton, and it's outstanding.
Yep.
He does a sensational job, and we're both huge fans.
And as I always say at this point, listeners, if you're enjoying what we're doing, please consider going to wherever it is you receive your podcast and leaving us a positive review. That would be smashing. Or consider going to our coffee page and buying Peter the price of a beverage. That would also be smashing. Right. I'm going to go and turn my pillow over and rest my head on it to try and cool down.
I'm going to ride off into the sunset with my motorcycle and try not to hit the self-destruct switch. On that bombshell, I've been Peter.
And I've been running away. My name's David. And we'll see you again soon on
Earth2 Podcast. Yee-haw!
Transmatter cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
Let's join our murderous midget as he secretly observes a moment of irresponsible mirth.
Peter. Peter
What?
is irrepressible.
Irresponsible mirth. Sorry, that's hilarious.
Irresponsible mirth supported menswear at the Bristol Fleets and Firkin.
Of course.